It's past 4 o'clock Eastern Time in the US, and the markets are now closed. I say this as first off because, as predicted last night, the markets did go gangbuster today. So the Dow has closed at about 3% up, NASDAQ about 3%, and S&P 500 about 3%, and oil futures, as predicted, are way down, almost $15 below what it was last week. So clearly, the market believes a ceasefire is going to hold. And why do I say this? Because our bosom buddy, Israel, has now teamed up with another bosom buddy, the United Arab Emirates, to do everything possible to undermine the ceasefire. In fact, UAE has gone as far as to strike Iranian interests and to actually actively now be an aggressor on Iranian infrastructure. And pretty publicly coming out on the side of saying that the US needs to stay and finish the job, and they're demanding reparations, and saying that Iran has to answer for its nuclear material and its military, and so on and so forth. So why bring all this up? Because from the podium, Caroline Leavitt has announced that Trump is dispatching JD Vance, America's vice president, and the two real estate dudes, Jared Kushner and Witkoff, to Islamabad for direct talks with Iran, which are supposed to be held Saturday morning, Pakistan time. So that happened. So while she was announcing that, Israel was putting out a video of Netanyahu basically saying that he does not abide by the ceasefire, and that Lebanon was never included in the ceasefire, and therefore he is striking and striking hard. Indeed, they have killed 280 Lebanese innocent civilians today. Thousands are in the hospital. They've devastated parts of Beirut. So indeed, he has done that. He is saying about Iran that he can order strikes at any time under his command, and that he has his finger on the trigger. And they have not accomplished everything they want to accomplish, and therefore they will go in at any time and use force as and when they see fit. So I think Netanyahu is telling the world and signaling to the United States that perhaps he is the boss and he determines what happens, not the United States, not Trump. JD Vance has been on the tarmac in Hungary answering a lot of questions. And from the tone and the tempo and what he's saying, it seems that he is doing everything possible to make sure the talks continue and to not vitiate the environment, which is good, I suppose. We must remember that JD Vance wants to become president in 2028, and he realizes that right now he's one of the most hated people in the US, that he doesn't poll well with Republicans, nor obviously with Democrats, nor with independents. And that another most hated thing that's happening in this country is this war. So the most hated person in the US is being tagged with one of the most hated things that his administration has done. Even though the New York Times has tried to launder his image by saying that he was a naysayer, etc., etc. But there we have it. So Vance is now trying to put himself forth as the key diplomat and and he's going to negotiate with the Iranians, so he's trying to thread that needle himself. Meanwhile, the Europeans are agreeing with Pakistan that Lebanon must be part of the agreement and should be part of the agreement. The Prime Minister of Pakistan was very clear yesterday. Lebanon was part of the agreement. All strikes must stop. Everybody must lay down their arms for 2 weeks. There was no ambiguity there. The US said nothing about that last night. Nothing. Israel started to attack Lebanon heavily. From what I can tell, Trump saying that Lebanon is a separate skirmish, Caroline Levitt saying it was never part of the agreement, JD Vance trying to say it was a misunderstanding by Iran, and not saying that actually the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the key man in the middle, who Trump forced to broker this deal, apparently, pushed Pakistan to broker this deal because Trump needed an off-ramp. JD Vance did not say that the Prime Minister of Pakistan was mistaken. He said Iran was mistaken. Nobody was mistaken. In my analysis, Netanyahu has basically shown the finger to the White House and to Trump, defied Trump, and basically showed Trump who's boss. And he's so much as saying it today, that Israel will do what it wants whenever it wants. While the White House is trying to put lipstick on a pig by saying, oh, no, it was never part of the deal, and we'll deal with that later. I think that's what's going on. Spain, Germany, Italy, Belgium, France, everybody howls of protest. Something, aside from Spain, something the Europeans never did. Never for Gaza. Not once did they ask Israel to stop. No protest, nothing. Hard to imagine why. Israel at both of these, Israel in the frame. I think the Europeans feel more like they can associate with the Lebanese, and because the Lebanese are French speaking, was a former colony of France, maybe they feel more affinity with the Lebanese than they ever did with Gazans, with Palestinians. That could be it. Maybe they've so imbibed the dehumanization of Palestinians that they can't see the humanity. That Israel can massacre 20,000 plus children in Gaza with the complicity of Europe, not a word of condemnation from these very same people, including Greece Prime Minister today on CNN, asking Israel to stop. 20,000 children in Gaza, not a word of condemnation. Here, howls of condemnation now. Spain's foreign minister says they agree with Pakistan and that they will do everything possible to make the ceasefire work. My worry is now in complicity with the UAE, which has publicly now come out and talked about being separate from the rest of the GCC and also the United States. I'm afraid that Israel and UAE are going to do everything to undermine the ceasefire, including false flags. I'm afraid some kind of situation is going to be manufactured that threatens the possibility of JD Vance going to Islamabad, or forces the Iranians to say the ceasefire is off. And right now we're on the brink of that. Ghalibaf has said that the ceasefire has been violated even before the negotiations begin. Arakshi has said to the United States, you must choose. Either you choose peace and negotiations, or you choose continued war via Israel. But clearly, Lebanon was part of the agreement, and you're already violating that. So reporting is that now Iran has again tightened the passage of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. But JD Vance continues to sound upbeat, so let's see. Iran has yet to announce who will be going to Islamabad. The rumor is that it's going to be Arakshi, the foreign minister, and Mr. Ghalibaf, who is the Speaker of the Parliament. How they will get to Islamabad, or if they will get to Islamabad, we don't know, but I would only assume that the Pakistani Air Force will be providing them support, air cover, escort, probably all the way from Iran, because the threat of Israeli assassinations looms very, very large. Netanyahu is telling us that he will do whatever he wants to, wherever he wants to whomever he wants to. They almost killed a Belgian foreign minister today who was visiting Beirut and was in the embassy of Belgium when they bombed very close to the embassy. How do we know this? Because he told us. Anyone, anywhere, anytime. It's almost as if Mr. Netanyahu is threatening Trump and making it very clear that they will not abide by any deal that the US is making. That no one can hold them to it, no one can force them to stop. The thing is, yes, they can be forced to stop. The US provides billions of dollars to Israel. They provide billions of dollars worth of weaponry to Israel. So does Europe. So yes, absolutely, they could be stopped. Spain is asking the European Union to put a stop to agreements, to trade agreements with Israel. Pedro Sanchez, once again, is the only European leader demonstrating any moral clarity. He is saying this is unacceptable violence that Israel is purposefully generating, and requesting the EU to withdraw from any trade agreement with Israel. So, at the end of today, at the end of the trading day, let's put it that way, the market clearly is expecting the ceasefire to hold, is clearly expecting the talks to happen. And from what I can tell from the tone and tenor of JD Vance, he too is expecting the talks to happen, and he seems to be expecting to be face to face with Mr. Ghalibaf. I don't know if Iran feels the same way, but from reporting, it seems that Trump pressured Pakistan to broker a negotiation, and Iran had to be dragged to the negotiating table. They did not want to agree to a ceasefire, regardless of what Crusader Pete said today. China had to prevail on Iran. China had to convince Iran to once again present the exact same proposal they've been presenting for 10 days, which is that 10-point proposal that everybody keeps hearing about. They've been proposing that for more than a month. Nothing new. And Trump has basically agreed to use that as the basis for the negotiation. But they were in no mood to come to the table. China had to drag them to this. So there we are. Trump was begging for an off-ramp, pushing Pakistan to broker a deal. Apparently, Netanyahu was informed last minute. Now we are in a situation where Netanyahu and his buddies in the UAE are doing everything to scuttle the agreement, trying to undermine the meeting that's supposed to happen this weekend in Pakistan. Europe is trying to pressure Israel to stop the aggression. JD Vance is trying to keep an even tone to keep the ceasefire negotiations alive. And his departure for Islamabad as heading the delegation has been announced from the White House. Now we wait and see what happens next. But honestly, I remain extremely worried that Israel and UAE are going to generate some false flag that scuttles the prospect of these talks. But all we can do is watch this space.